When Kevin finally ran the Lumiere brothers film reel through Lucia's projector, he was disappointed that it only revealed a series of bizarre lines and shapes. Upset at this dead end, Kevin confronted the Night King, who had pushed him onto this quest in the first place. After assuring that hope had not yet been lost, the Night King encouraged Kevin to clear his head with a visit home. Taking his advice, Kevin flew back to Chicago. When he saw Lily at the airport, she was surrounded by reporters and about to faint, so Kevin knew he had to do something fast. In an instant, Kevin closed his eyes and summoned the 10 directions, a skill he obtained after many months of cultivating his levels. When Kevin opened his eyes again, time itself had slowed to a standstill, and Lily was just inches away from hitting the ground. With everyone frozen in time, Kevin pushed through the crowd with ease, picked Lily up in his arms, and headed for the exit. As he carried her through the crowd, one person he walked past seemed strangely out of place in time. She had a huge pair of sunglasses that covered most of her face, a scarf wrapped over her head, and unlike the frenzied reporters, she seemed absolutely calm and collected, as if she was merely studying. Kevin had half a mind to reach into the mysterious woman's purse and look at her ID, but because he only had a few seconds before the 10 directions would wear off, he had to keep going instead. While time was still frozen, he carried Lily all the way back to the car, and when time resumed, they were already driving away from the airport. As Lily snapped back into motion, she was still trying to answer the reporter's questions. From her perspective, it was as if no time had passed at all. "As for the monorail," she said, "I'm currently looking at blueprints from top designers and—" Suddenly realizing she was in the passenger seat of the car, Lily stopped mid-sentence and gasped. "Huh? Kevin? What just happened? How did we get in the car? I thought I was just surrounded by a bunch of reporters. Was I dreaming?" Kevin chuckled and shook his head. "No, it wasn't a dream," he said. "You were about to faint, so I froze time with the 10 directions technique and got you out of there as fast as I could. They weren't giving you any space to breathe." Lily still felt a little nauseated as she took in her surroundings. "You mean you carried me all the way to the car?" Kevin smiled. "It was nothing, my dear. You're light as a feather." Lily smirked, taking it as a compliment. "Thanks, Kevin. It's good to see you again," she said as she leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "I'm glad to be the new mayor, but boy, is it stressful. It's the biggest responsibility I've ever had in my life." Then she rubbed her pregnant belly and said, "Well, at least the second biggest responsibility I've had so far." Kevin reached into a satchel and handed Lily a little bottle of pills. "Here, take one of these for 3 days," he said. "They're recovery pills. They should help with the nausea." Lily didn't hesitate to take one. She always trusted whatever Kevin prescribed for her. He was the one with the most successful herbalist in the entire world, after all, and he'd used that skill to turn Williams & Williams Pharmaceuticals into the world's leading in medicine. As soon as she swallowed the pill, her muscles began to relax and her nausea started to clear. "Thanks, Kevin. I feel better already." "Me too," Kevin replied. "Being around you always makes me feel better, Lily. Hollywood's such a crazy place, but you're always so nice and calm. I knew I had to come see you for a while and regain my sanity." Lily took Kevin's hand and smiled. "I've missed you too, Kevin." Now that Lily was feeling better physically, Kevin wanted to also help her feel better mentally. "It seems like being mayor has put a lot of stress on your shoulders. Do you need a bigger staff to help you run the city?" he asked. Lily sighed. "Well, that's the thing, Kevin. I haven't hired any staff at all yet. I don't want the city to think I'm just hiring people to do the work for me." Kevin chuckled. "Well, that's awfully thoughtful of you, dear, but you absolutely need a team to get through this. You can't improve the city all by yourself, you know. If you hire the right people with similar ambitions to help the city, there's no end to the amount of good you could all do together." Lily's heart suddenly filled with a burst of inspiration. "Well, when you put it that way, I can't disagree. I'll start interviewing people as soon as I can. In the meantime, let's just enjoy each other's company for a while, huh? How does that sound?" As he pulled off the main highway, Kevin glanced at Lily and grinned. "I wouldn't have it any other way," he said. When they returned to their home in the suburbs, Kevin was hoping for some quiet one-on-one time with Lily, but unfortunately, Dorothy was right there to greet them as they walked through the door. "Well, well, well, look who's finally back from Hollywood," Dorothy said in a sarcastic, condescending tone. "Have you finally decided that your wife is more important than something as silly as making movies? You know, most movies lose money, Kevin." Kevin groaned as he dropped his suitcase and took off his shoes. "It's nice to see you too, Dorothy. Thanks for the warm welcome." Dorothy may not have been happy to see him, but Hank the family dog certainly was. As soon as he smelled Kevin's scent, he leapt off the couch and sprinted forward to greet him. "Hey, Hank, who's a good boy?" After petting Hank, Kevin stood up and put his hands on his hips. "Well, I'm exhausted from the plane ride and it's getting pretty late, so I think I'll just take a shower and get to bed. What about you, Lily?" "I'm right behind you," Lily echoed. Then, after they said goodnight and started walking upstairs, Dorothy said, "I saw that movie you made, by the way. I'm no film critic, but I wouldn't exactly say it struck a chord." Kevin just continued walking up the stairs without looking back. "Thank you, Dorothy," he replied sarcastically. The next morning, Kevin slept in later than anyone else in the house. He was taking a break after all. If he wanted to keep pursuing the mystery of the upper realm, he'd have to clear his mind, which at least in part meant catching up on his sleep. When he walked downstairs, everyone was just finishing up breakfast. His parents, Alan and Susan, were delighted to see him. "Good morning, Kevin. It's so wonderful of you to come home and visit for a while," Susan exclaimed. Kevin smiled as he sat down and served himself a stack of pancakes. "It's good to see you too, Mom and Dad. I hope things haven't been too stressful while I've been gone." Dorothy leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. "Your parents and I have been just fine, but the stress that Lily's been under more than makes up for it. Now that she's mayor of Chicago, she needs you more than ever, Kevin. And what have you been doing instead? Funding experimental art films that nobody will ever like except Hollywood snobs and critics." Just then, Lily entered the room in a very professional-looking pantsuit. "Oh, would you please lay off Kevin, Mom? Contrary to what you may think, I don't need him around 24/7 to tend to me like an infant. I fully support his career in Hollywood, and he fully supports my career here in Chicago. Isn't that right, Kevin?" Kevin nodded as he began to cut into his pancakes. "That's right, dear. We're what the kids today might call a power couple." Dorothy rolled her eyes. "You know what, Kevin? You should write and direct comedy movies because everything you say is a joke." Kevin opened his mouth to make a comeback, but Lily beat him to the punch. "All right, I'm off," she said. "Play nice while I'm gone, please." Kevin swallowed a bite of his pancakes before replying. "Where are you off to, Lily? I really don't think you should continue working without a team behind you." Lily nodded her agreement. "I know, Kevin, I agree. That's why I'm starting to meet with potential candidates today. My first meeting is with Ruby Kincaid. She was Chief Director of Transportation for over 20 years and has garnered quite a reputation for herself as one of the city's best problem solvers. Hopefully, I can convince her to join my staff." When Kevin pulled out his phone and searched for her name on the internet, the photo that popped up surprised him. It was the same woman he saw outside the airport while using the 10 directions technique to pause time. She was the one with the big sunglasses and the headscarf. "Hey, I recognize this person," Kevin said. "She was at the airport when I froze time and carried you to the car. That's a little odd, don't you think?" Lily brushed it off. "Odd to be at the airport? Don't be silly, Kevin. She was probably just coming home from a trip, or there to pick up a friend. Anyway, I'll see you later this afternoon. Bye, everyone." His mission for this visit was to relax, so Kevin served himself a cup of coffee and another stack of pancakes. About an hour later, Lily was just sitting down for her interview with Ruby Kincaid, who was also dressed in a pantsuit. "Thanks for agreeing to meet with me, Ruby. It's a true honor to meet you," Lily said. Ruby smiled as she shook Lily's hand. "Oh, please, the honor is mine, Mayor Williams. We women in power need to stick together, you know. and do our best to keep any more men from getting through the gates." Lily chuckled. "Yes, the government they constructed sure isn't easy to run, is it? I knew the city was in rough shape, but I had no idea how much needed fixing until I got elected." Ruby perked forward as if preparing herself for some deep thinking. "Anything I can help you with, Mrs. Williams?" Lily hesitated to speak. As mayor, she felt a deep need to spare others from as many problems as possible, but following Kevin's advice, she swallowed her pride and said, "Well, there is actually one thing you might be able to help me with, your experience in transportation and all." Ruby nodded and expressed great interest in her eyes. "Of course, Mayor Williams. I'd be happy to lend you a hand. Please, go on." "Well," Lily said, "I don't know how it started, but somehow a rumor developed around town that I was replacing the L-train system with a new state-of-the-art monorail. I hadn't thought of it before, but now that the word is out there, I'm afraid that I'll let people down either way. If I don't install the monorail system, then the people who are really excited about it will accuse me of keeping the city stuck in the past. And if I do install it, some other group will accuse me of reckless spending. It's like I'm caught in a trap." Ruby smiled calmly. "The lesson is that you'll never please everyone, Lily. And at some point, you'll have to start trusting your own gut feelings. But if you're interested in what I say on the matter, I'll tell you this. Now is not a time for you to get into monorails. They may have been emblematic of the future back in the 80s, but the new future is self-driving cars, my dear, and my oh my, is the new future coming soon. Do you really want to make a good first impression as mayor? Well, then make Chicago the first American city to have a fully functional, accident-free automated transit system. They'd put you in the history books for that." Lily was speechless. Ruby's vision of the future had left her completely in awe. "It sounds marvelous," she said. "How could we even begin to implement something like that?" Ruby grinned. "I'll tell you what, my dear. You've got enough on your plate as it is. Allow me to make a few calls and I'll have a written proposal on your desk first thing in the morning." Somehow Lily was even more stunned than before. "Really? Do you mean it? I couldn't even begin to thank you enough for that, Ruby." Ruby stood up and straightened her jacket. "Oh, please. As your new chief of staff, it's the least I could do." Lily was so happy she could almost cry. "Thank you so much, Ruby. Welcome to the team." "Team Chicago," Ruby replied with a smile. But as soon as she left Lily's office, her smile dissolved into a frown. After leaving City Hall, Ruby pulled out her cell phone and dialed a friend. After a few rings, Juanita Hernandez answered the call. "Yes, Ruby? Do you have some good news for me?" Ruby's lips twisted into a devilish grin. "I'm in," she said. It was a little pathetic, really, how quickly she bought the whole thing. Long story short, I'm her new chief of staff. Juanita chuckled on the other side of the phone. "Wonderful, Ruby. Wonderful. Everything is going exactly according to plan."